we go. Hi there. Welcome to another one of my Own Your Expertise interviews. I'm Emily Crookston, owner and decider of all things at the Pocket PhD. I'm the ghostwriter for Rebels, Renegades, and Mavericks, and I love helping experts with big ideas get those ideas out of their heads and into the hands of their fans. If you're watching us live today, we'd love you to pop your comments into the chat. Just say hi. We always like to see that, yes, people are out there watching us behind the green dots on our screens. And today, I'm sitting down with Kathy Magnusson. Kathy is the owner of Wildewood Learning. She's a social and emotional learning specialist who believes that learning is an adventure. And she loves to help educators design a positive learning environment for their students. Kathy, thanks so much for speaking with me. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about who you work with and what you do?
Sure. Thank you, Emily, for inviting me onto your series. I was very excited to be part of this. I work mainly with teachers, educators, caregivers of children, people who work with youth professionals, and I do work with parents also, but mainly teachers and educators are my group that I like to work with. And I do that through doing some courses. I also have been working within schools, doing workshops, professional development opportunities, and things like that.
Right, very good. So education and educators in a broad sense, I guess. Anybody who has contacts with kids.
Exactly, yes. Anyone who has contact with kids is for sure.
Cool. How would you describe your path to becoming an expert?
Well, like lots of paths, it is never straight. At the age of 18, you think your path to your career is going to be this thing. And as we all know as adults, it's never that way. It's pretty winding. But I became interested in science. Science has really been one of my loves. And I thought that was going to lead into being a veterinarian, which it didn't. It led into education, actually, through a lot of different things. But I really found that working with youth is something that I enjoyed at a younger age. I was involved in a program called 4-H. I don't know if many people know, but 4-H is a national-wide youth program. And through 4-H, I really then found the things that I love to do because it's so experiential and you get to work with it. And so science was one of those things. And that led me into going back after my bachelor's degree and getting a master's degree at the University of Minnesota in education and getting my science teaching licensure, which then led to me teaching science. I taught in the classroom for over 10 years. I was a middle school, high school science teacher. And so I had that direct contact within the classrooms. But after a while, I was looking for something a little bit more, something a little bit different. And that led me into the realm of social emotional learning. And where the science really comes into that is the brain science. I love the brain science, knowing how people learn, knowing how your brain can, so often we thought brains just kind of stayed at one level, but now we're finding how they can change and how skills can be used and that we're able to influence it, even at my age, right? We're able to change. So you can do those sort of things. And that's where that has led me into social emotional learning and really specializing in looking at the skills of resilience.
Yes, I love that. So, yeah, the brain is plastic, right? It's elastic. It's easy to change, and we are so adaptable when we really think about it, right? And yeah. I'm really fascinated that you were a teacher, but you decided you wanted more. You decided you wanted to expand and move into thinking about this emotional and social intelligence. Is there a moment in your teaching career where you thought, oh, this is the thing that I need to do? What led you to that move?
It wasn't conscious. It was something that that really piqued my interest, and the opportunity came forth, and I had some people that said, oh, you'd be really good at this. And
Oh,
so that's how I got into doing social emotional learning. In fact, I was in my late 30s, and I was asked if I was interested in a part-time position doing it in the elementary classrooms. And I was like, yeah, that sounds really great. I was getting a little bit burnt out, I would say, in teaching in full-time classrooms, and we were making some changes in our personal life. And so, yeah, that led me into this part-time position. And luckily, I had a really great mentor that was willing to teach me and help me in a lot of those skills. So I tell the kids when I'm in the classroom teaching with children that they are so lucky to learn these skills at a young age, because now you'll have your whole lifetime to practice them. Where I was, didn't even know what an iMessage was, or to talk about my feelings, or even identify my feelings, because I said before this interview, my husband's Icelandic and Norwegian, and I'm German, and that's just not where we went with in our family.
Yes, that's so interesting. Yeah, that's very cool. Like, I think I hear that story so much when I ask entrepreneurs about that pivotal moment or whatever. It's almost never a conscious, like, okay, now I need to go over here and do this thing. It's someone who points out that you would be really good at this, and you start thinking about it, and then an opportunity comes along, and you think, yeah, I think I'll do that thing, and yeah, it's a beautiful way to sort of build your not so straight path that we're always talking about. This might be the key for why these paths aren't so straight.
Right.
In the end.
Yeah. It's following that yes, looking at the yes and going, oh yeah, that would be kind of cool. And then,
Right.
being open to that opportunity for
Yeah.
sure.
Right. And all of this is a part of these social and emotional skills that we're talking about as well, right? Resiliency is about not clinging to one pathway and thinking it has to be the right way, but being open to other possible routes to get where you're trying to go, right?
Exactly. And reframing things, looking at those things that you go, yeah, looking at it in a different light. How can we reframe that into something that's going to be maybe more positive, or an opportunity, or taking those things that we look at and go, ooh, that didn't work out very well, but how can I, reframe that into what I learned?
Yes, it's such an important skill for you to be teaching to younger kids and teachers to be teaching to their students. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Cool. So how would you say you've learned to translate your expertise for others?
Well, as I talked about that, we were kind of making some changes in our personal life, my husband and I. And so my children are adopted out of foster care. And that was, we always say, I mean, it goes, you teach what you need, right? Yes. And I had been teaching in social emotional learning for a couple of years. And I always say, there's a grander plan, because boy, did I put those skills into practice when adopting 4 kids, 4 children, us adopting. And then also learning more about traumatic experiences in your childhood, and how that changes brain structure and can change your view on life. That's why, too, working with early educators, working with daycare providers or child caregivers. This summer, I had the opportunity to do that, and just how important those first few years of their life is in setting up kids. And not saying that we are resilient. For sure we are resilient, but those are important years, along with the early elementary age and on up. And so just knowing those factors, and then being able to take that and translate that for adults and for kids. I think too, I also teach in the classroom. I go into schools, into their classrooms. Now I'm doing it virtually, but talking these skills, or training, or using these skills with the children, and then finding out, we need exactly what these children need too. I mean, how can we ask children to do something that us as adults can't do. So even taking that step back and going, the adults need to be trained in these skills. We need to, as educators and caregivers, be aware of our feelings and being aware of how we can regulate, calm ourselves down, make sure that we're calm before we address the child or address the behavior or what's going on, right?
Yes, that seems so right. I love that when you say, if you want a child to calm down, you also have to be calm as the adult in the room, right? You'll never get them to open up to you if you're closed off, if you're putting up those walls, right? Mirroring the kinds of things you want to be able to see in a child. I think that's also important for parents to remember as a tip, or even for pet owners, like I think about my sister. She just got a puppy. You some of this, you want your puppy to calm down, you gotta,
Right. Yeah. And not saying that I don't fly off the handle, because of course earlier today I was, my teenage son who's here at home, I flew off the handle, but making sure that I can, go away, come back, calm myself down, have a conversation with him about what was going on for me. And then, us talking a little bit about what was it that was happening,
Yeah.
and so I think that's the important part too, is knowing that you're not perfect at this. We're all humans. We all are learning. And
Yes.
no way are we consistently perfect, right?
Right. Yeah. And being able to talk about those things seems to me to be such an important part of this. Emotional and social intelligence, just being able to have that conversation rather than, stuffing down your feelings or just blowing up and then never talking about it again, or right, whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's our norm. That's our normal, is to stuff our feelings. But it's just so encouraging, all the people who are coming out at this time and talking and listening to like Brene Brown and Mark Brackett, who wrote Permission to Feel, and all of these experts that are coming forth just saying, it's okay. I mean, we did have people earlier too, Daniel Goldman and Dan Siegel are ones that I follow also, but it's just like, yeah, we need this, and we need it so much more now.
Mm-hmm.
All the things that are going on in 2020 with the pandemic and racial unrest and civil unrest, and the election is over, but not really,
Right.
all of that.
Right. We still have challenges. We still have work to do, right, going forward, and all of that. Yeah.
So, these social emotional learning skills and are things that you can tap into.
Yeah. So if I asked you for a tip off the top of your head about developing social and emotional intelligence, is there a good tip that you could share? I know I'm putting you off the spot here.
No, that's great. One of the things, and I think as adults, we need to front load, meaning that we have to practice things, and same with kids. I tell this with the students that I work with too. We have to practice before, so that we have this toolbox that we can then open up and go, whoa, I'm flying off the handle. What do I need to do? So one of the tools that I do regularly is breathing, and just not like to just deep breathe. And I know people go meditation and you think, oh, I have to sit for 20 minutes or 10 minutes, or, if you can take some time to just like walk away from the situation, sit down, make sure that your exhale is longer than your inhale. Take those deep breaths. Dr. Dan Siegel has this excellent thing called flip your lid. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but he talks about the brain, and that we all have a model of our brain. and it's right here. It's really handy, he says, you know. And this is our amygdala. So I'm doing a little right here, and that's our fight, flight, freeze area of our brain.
Okay.
And then it's covered by our prefrontal cortex, which is our thinking part of our brain. And so when this gets triggered, when I stress, or, you know, might be things that are real, like for instance, you know, somebody's in danger, we then go automatically into flipping our lid. And when we flip our lid, we can't get to the thinking part of our brain until we take some time. It takes some deep breaths, or take a walk or two, you know, so that we can get down and reason and think about, what do we need? You know, what do we need? So that's just, you know, a little bit of basic brain science. And, you know, if we keep stuffing things down, it's going to come out somehow, but usually it comes out sideways. It comes out in other people. It comes out in behaviors that are, what do you want to say, detriments, right? So if you don't address it, it's still going to come out.
I love that analogy, and I can see how that would be so powerful with kids, especially like flipping your lid. Right? Yeah, that's like the perfect analogy of a trigger, right? You're triggered and you flip your lid, and then you got to bring it back down. Yeah, that's so great. I like that. Easy to remember.
Yeah, and it's great for adults too.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and then if you all have the same common language, you can see the children going, Mom, you're flipping your lid, or take some deep breaths. Of course, you know, doing all of that work beforehand, you know, and having that knowledge beforehand is going to help you when you're in the moment. So it's just like any other skill. You have to practice it. You have to take time. You have to be aware about it, because of course you wouldn't go into a big basketball game without having a whole bunch of practices beforehand, right?
Right.
So that's the same way with these skills too.
Yeah, that makes really good sense. Awesome. So what would you say has helped you the most in learning to own your expertise?
Oh, again, you know, just those opportunities to learn. One of the things that I get really kind of, what do you want to say, geeked out about is strengths. I'm a certified strengths communicator, and I work with a tool called Strengths Finder. And that's something that I love. I love doing it with adults, and also I've adapted it so that you can do it. There's the Strengths Explorer that you can do with younger kids, but then also created a checklist for parents and caregivers and teachers that they can use with children, just to help start noticing what's good about this child, what's good about yourself. You know, how can you lean into those strengths? What are the things that you find challenging and maybe need to find other people to help you out with? Because of course we can't do everything ourselves. And so really leaning into what's our challenges, and then seeking out those people to help us with those challenges. So it's kind of a mind shift, a frame shift when we start talking with children, because a lot of time when we talk about children and their strengths, we're looking at things like academic strengths, you know, as a teacher. But this is really about personality and what comes easy and natural to that child, and then reframing it as an adult, because we have like this negativity bias as humans. We are always looking for the danger. We're going to the negative. They say that you need to have, 3 positives to every negative comment, you know. So we have this tendency to look at children and go, oh my gosh, what's wrong with that child? You know? Instead, taking some time to kind of back up and say, you know, what's right with that child? You know, what happened? If there's been trauma in that child, why is that? What's happening? That's where some of those behaviors are coming out because of trauma. But then even taking it that next step and looking at, you know, what's right with this child. So And as adults, we need to see what's right with us first.
Yeah.
Your strengths lie.
Right.
What's right about you?
Mhm.
And then, taking those things and then saying, yeah, this is what's good about me. Yeah. And then you can see the good in other people. But I think you have to first kind of be aware of that goodness within yourself.
Yes, it's so important. I can really see the string of, when you talk about your path to becoming the expert and you talk about adoption with your kids, I can really see the string of how all that's tied together into this positive parenting, positive, emotional response with the kids and with adults too. You're so right. It's we have to know ourselves before we can really see the good in others. I totally agree with that. And I think it's really nice. And I like Strengths Finder as a way of pulling out those positive sides of your personality. And I really think it's cool that you've figured out how to adapt that for children, or you've brought that process in to help kids as well. Because man, what would it have been like if I'd known my strengths when I was 10 or 8? If someone had talked to me in that way about strengths rather than you need to do A, B, and C, and if you don't do these things, shame on you. That sort of attitude. It's so different.
Exactly. And lots of times too, we can look at a child's behavior. So for instance, you have somebody in your classroom, they love to talk. They love to talk and love to, be talking to people next to them. And we call them a chatterbox, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, oh, you're a little chatterbox. But really, how can we reframe that and say, that person really has, that child has some relationship building skills there. Look how they're inviting other people in, or including others, or building upon friendships. Maybe they're the child that their friends always come to them to help them solve those conflicts. That's all relationship building skills. And when we start looking at things like, what are the things that people say are when they're looking for careers, right? They talk about, oh, we want employees who can build relationships. We want employees that are critical thinkers. We want employees that can think outside of the box.
Right.
Wow, isn't that where our strengths really come in? Right.
Right. And aren't those the things that a lot of kids get in trouble for doing? Right.
Yes.
Right.
Now, it just actually kind of hurts my heart at times when I read about adults that are successful and they go, oh, but I wasn't very good at school. What is really encouraging though is when they can find that one or two teacher that they really connect with, and that teacher does say to them, you're really good at blank. You're really good getting up in front of people and speaking. And I had that teacher that was like, oh, you're really good at science. I can see. And now I look at my strengths and I go, yeah, 3 of my top strengths are in what's called strategic thinking, which is all about learning, knowledge, bringing in, bringing things together with ideas. So I can really see that now. And luckily I had that one teacher who said, gosh, you're really good at science, and maybe that's some place where you should pursue as a career.
Yeah, it's such important. I mean, it even goes back to what we were talking about in the beginning. People point out to you your strengths and then you look for the opportunities, right? So it's really important to listen to those things when they come along. Well, thank you, Kathy. I've enjoyed this conversation so much. I've learned a lot from you.
Yeah, thank you, Emily. I can't believe our time's almost up.
I know.
That went by really fast.
Yes. Tell people where they can find out more about you.
Sure. So I do have a website. It's called Wildewood Learning, which is www.wildwood, WILDE, woodlearning.com. And then also I'm on LinkedIn as Kathy Magnusson. So please connect with me there because I'm I'm trying to post things there every day as far as like little tips on resilience and things to think about. And then I have a Facebook page under Wildwood Learning. I'm on Twitter as Magnusson at Magnusson Kathy. Yeah, that's how it is. So I'm on all of those things. Instagram, but I don't really post on Instagram much. So
Okay, great.
yeah.
We'll
So those are
share all the
ways you
links.
can find me.
Yeah, we'll share all the links in the comments once the replay is up there. So yeah, everyone can find you. Yay.
All right. Sounds great.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, Emily.
Bye-bye.